everybody. Welcome to Tuning Fork. It's a podcast about music and the Pitchfork Media Hype Machine. I'm David.
I'm Matt.
I'm Charlie.
It's Charlie. We have a guest named Charlie, and they are here to talk about something that I had actually never listened to before this week. What is it?
It is Favors and Mirrors by Bright Eyes. It was released in the year 2000. So we're going back 2 decades, if you believe time is real.
I don't.
Yeah, this is going way back to the point where I think modern day Pitchfork just starts like keeping track of the old reviews.
Right. And it's also a pre-Best New Music time. So even if the initial review was a good one, which it was not, it would not have had the Best New Music designation regardless, because I believe that started in like 2002 or 2003.
Yeah, I think so.
I should know this by now, but I don't.
I'm content with Charlie, not knowing Pitchfork history.
Anyway, I'm just going to just pop a quick beeb open.
Oh, good plan. I already popped mine, unfortunately, so I can't get that on the recording this time.
Excuse me,
what? Matt always pops a podcast beer
directly into my
to
microphone.
Get in the mood. Yeah.
That's great. And you
but
just
also
dunk
I say beeb instead
you dunk
of
your
beer.
microphone into it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, good. Okay. All I have is 365 electrolyte water. So, sorry to disappoint, I guess.
Sounds fucking sick.
Yeah, it's fine.
But yeah, we have an album with the 2 Pitchfork reviews this week, which are always fun ones, because we get to look at both reviews and kind of compare and contrast them. This one is interesting in that, just as like aesthetic descriptions of the album go, they both basically say the same things, but one of the reviewers says, I hate this, and the other one says, but it's good, actually. I really do love that. Also, I think both reviewers, like the initial reviewer is 20 when Conor Oberst was 20, and I believe when Ian Cohen was reviewing this, he was the same age as Conor Oberst, or at least he says something to that effect in the review.
So like late 30s.
Yeah, exactly.
For some really fun age context, when this album came out, I was 3.
I always forget that you're baby.
Yeah.
I'm a little tiny baby. So
I was 11 and I think Matt was 9.
I had the immense...
If it came out before October, I was 8, but otherwise I was 9.
Okay.
I had the immense pleasure of going through basically all of my childhood and teen years with Bright Eyes being, like, present and available to me. So some would say that's why I'm like this. And my mom actually introduced me to Bright Eyes when I was in 5th grade.
Oh, boy.
So, buckle up.
I'm excited, personally. I had always had friends who were into Bright Eyes, and I'd heard a lot about them, like how they were an indie folk outfit, and they were like one of the first ones that I was kind of aware of. I just never really like dipped in there.
And it's always really funny when people refer to them as emo, because emo as a genre is just so far removed from what Conor was making.
It honestly cracks me up to hear Bright Eyes in any kind of like musical genre designation that isn't just the word sad, because it's it's really hard to remove like the overwhelming dramatic melancholy in everything he makes from the music enough to give it any kind of genre designation based off like the instrumentals.
Even just based on the instrumentals, and you go through the lyrics on a listen, and you make the CinemaSins ding sound every time he does a reference to suicide, which is a lot of times.
there's like a shot clock. So exactly. Every time he says like pills, fevers, mirrors, water, or alludes to suicide on this album, we all take an imaginary shot, and we would die by the second song.
Easily.
Yeah, it's the clock.
So my, like, something that cracked me up, because I've never really gone through this album with, like, a fine-tooth comb. Bright Eyes has always kind of been something I, like, throw on when I'm in a mood, like, every other day, or I'll just, like, put their whole discography on shuffle, or I'll listen to my Bright Eyes 101 playlist, which is beautifully curated, if I must say. And so it's, like, I don't really go album by album with them anymore, just because I'm past that point. So going through this, like having the lyrics up and really taking the time to like sit and listen to this after so many years of not really doing that with this specific album was hilarious, because I got to see it from like my teenage point of view and my current adult point of view. And I feel like I am both of these reviews.
Yeah, he's very dramatic in a way that, like, I feel like a lot of people don't manage in a way that sounds as, like, simultaneously sincere, but also, like, you know, kind of aware of his own ass he is. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think the best way to describe that is, like, you know, theatrically corny.
Yeah, in the way that only a person who is 19 when he's recording the album can be.
Right, or like Gerard Way.
Yeah.
I feel like they have a lot in common in that way. Although, like, Gerard Way is obviously more theater kid in both his energy and the way he sounds.
Right.
Yeah.
But just in, like, the complete over-the-topness of the way he writes everything.
Conor was obviously the jock.
Kind of similar, yeah.
I feel like when I was listening to this album, I, like, reading the lyrics and listening to it and just thinking about, you know, like, being that age 3 years ago and, like, just, like, having all those pieces together and putting my full attention to them. I'm looking at this and, like, one of my most prevalent thoughts through all of this was just, like, aren't you tired? Like, aren't you tired of talking about this? Like, I get it, big feelings, but, like, man, I wouldn't be able to write this much about the same, like, 3 subjects.
Yeah. The original review gave it a 5.4. I don't think we'd touched on the scores yet. And the reissue in 2012 got a 9.0. So it's not quite as big a spread as the Belle and Sebastian album, which was like 0.8 and 8.4 or something like that.
Yeah. Or than our eventual Andrew WK review will be.
Yeah. Hopefully
That's
Hopefully we can get Andrew himself on for that one.
I'd love to. I will try. But yeah,
gotta shoot your shot.
The Fevers and Mirrors, the initial review is by Taylor M. Clark. I actually don't know how much he wrote for the site, so I'm gonna do this live. I'm just clicking it.
Yeah.
Oh, clicking his name just brings up the masthead, so I assume it wasn't very much.
Yeah, maybe before the new site launched.
Oh yeah, for sure.
There's probably a few back in archive.org that you could find.
He probably wrote this and then, like, Bright Eyes fans descended on him and he has never been heard from again.
Yeah, they just enveloped him like a cloud, carried him away.
I mean, there wasn't really, like, social media yet. Where were they going to do that?
Probably at a Bright Eyes show where they all, like, pool their collective sadness to make a huge gray cloud to go find Taylor Clark and suck him into the abyss.
Yeah, he got canceled in real life.
That's what we call death now, is real life canceled.
Yeah, just real life canceling.
Perma-cancel.
Yeah.
But yeah, it pulls a lot into, like, wow, the instruments and the production sound good, which, like, yeah, Mike Mogis does a good job. He's just a consummate professional. The place where I'm most familiar with his production work, since I never really listened to that much Jenny Lewis solo stuff and barely any Bright Eyes, is actually from the stateside debuts. The debut and the follow-up from First Aid Kit, if you remember that that particular outfit, who were originally... Well, we talked about them on, like, one of our most recent episodes, because they did... Their big breakout in the US was doing a cover of a Fleet Foxes song on YouTube.
Yeah.
They did 2 albums with Mike Mogis producing.
Yeah, he also produced the first 2 albums by She and Him, which were, which were things that, like, got the indie press talking, but never really, I feel like, made a huge impact.
She and Him are very much just a product of where, like, indie music was in, like, the late aughts.
Yeah.
Like, that's just kind of... It's very much just a time capsule. Whereas, like, this album doesn't feel as much like a time capsule of, like, 2000. Like, I didn't remember 2000 very much, you know, because I was a youth.
Yeah, for me, 2000 was all about Eiffel 65, Blue Dabba Dee Dabba Die.
Yeah. For me, it was various songs by The Offspring.
There you go.
Breaking out due to a Fleet Foxes song on YouTube, like, immediately reminded me of those 2 people who did the, like, How to Make an Alt-J song where they were just eating rice cakes and, like, mashing a keyboard. They actually have a band now, and it's not bad.
Yeah, no. Yeah. They had a band when they made the video, too, although I don't think they'd had very much out at the time.
Yeah.
But I'm very glad that they managed to leverage that.
They have, like, a really well-made music video, and, like, they've fleshed out their sound a lot more, and they've, like, grown up a little bit. I don't know. They're pretty good. They're called Fleece.
Oh, yeah. They looked like they were about 18 and 20 when they made that video.
Yeah.
Yeah, if even that.
What a good video.
So, are we ready to get into the album, then?
I think so.
Yeah, let's get into it.
All right. First, we have a spindle, comma, a darkness, comma, a fever, comma, and a necklace.
'Cause you don't depend upon all the shit that I use to make my moods improve.
Conor Oberst loves to make lists in these album
sure does.
titles. He also leans like super heavy into the motifs to the point that he just lists them and then writes directly about them, which is cute.
Yeah, that is like most of the motifs of this album in that one title, huh?
I think I would venture to say that 90% of them are just straight up listed in the song titles or the album title. The only one that might not be is just the word pills somewhere, but I think everything else is like explicitly laid out beforehand.
Does he have the word scale in any of the song titles? Because I know he mentions scales a lot.
Oh, he might not. That might be another one.
But he's got the fever covered.
Oh, wait. Yes, he does. An attempt to tip the scales. Yes.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah. How could I forget?
Yeah.
This opens...
The title of this, which is the title of this, the list title of this reminds me of that old Last FM tag, a campfire and a tent and a flashlight and some matches and a tree and that river and my glasses and a spaceship and a really, really big bear, but the bear is really, really far away.
Last FM tags, what a classic time. I was just thinking about the tag that was on Sleigh Bells when they debuted, which was, I hope she showed this to her 5th grade class.
Yeah.
It's like
Alexis
like
Krauss, the 5th grade teacher.
The same energy as like old Fall Out Boy song titles.
Yeah, I mean,
like,
it really does seem like Fall Out Boy, like Bright Eyes walked so Fall Out Boy could do whatever the hell they're doing.
They're doing something.
They're sure doing something.
I think.
So the song starts with like a tape recording of a kid doing like oral reading out of a book, and I feel like indie bands in the 2000s were really into using like samples of old tape recordings just as atmosphere.
It kind of it sounds like a cryptic ransom note, but it is actually it's a book from the 70s called Mitchell is Moving, which is about a dinosaur who is moving. It's really, the illustration is delightful. I did look this up.
I do love to know
I'd
this.
never heard of it.
It looks cute. I really like 70s children's books. I like go hunt them sometimes from antique stores and take them home. So now I need to look for this one.
Yeah,
I wonder if Schaefer from the HKIP Discord knows about that one.
Maybe.
Connor immediately sounds like he's trying to sing quietly to himself while crying. That's just kind of the energy he comes in with. Is like, I'm already crying, but I'm going to sing you a song now.
Yeah, this is like the primary Conor Oberst voice that I'm aware of. There's a couple of different Conor voices on this album, but the one where he's crying and his voice seems to shake a bit, that's the one that I'm more familiar with.
Yeah.
Like, I think I got
That's
it.
exactly
Kinda
that.
got it
Yeah,
in
you
one
definitely got it. You did.
There's a lot of mouth sounds. He's not afraid to leave the breathing in.
Oh my god, yeah, he sounds so wet. He has the wettest mouth I've ever heard.
He's right up on that mic the whole time.
So all of, like, the lyrics to every single one of these songs are so dense that they kind of read like poetry. And I don't always mean that as a compliment, but 15-year-old me definitely would have. I ended up just like pulling some lines that I thought were either really dramatic or really funny, because there's, you know, that's really the only way to differentiate them. If I tried to pull everything that was sad, I would just be writing down all the lyrics.
Yeah.
But some
and
that
that's
I
what
really
we have
liked.
our goodfriendsgenius.com for.
It's true.
Right.
So some of the wild ones were like, language just happened. It was never planned, and it's inadequate to describe where I am. And you're like, okay, that's kind of deep. I get it. Connor's talking about how, like, you know, maybe nothing divine created people. Cool. And then he goes, where I am in the room of my house where the light's never been, waiting for this day to end. And it's like, okay, you were waxing poetic basically to say, like, I'm miserable and alone and my room is dark and I just want to go to bed.
Don't we all?
Honestly, I relate to this album in a myriad of ways during the period of this year that we call 2020.
It's been a hell of a year, huh?
Yeah, I think Bright Eyes is probably appropriate for it this time.
It's really like psychedelic imagery. It's almost like Elephant Six level of kind of metaphor here, but it's also extremely easy to pick out what he's talking about.
I feel like Connor was definitely listening to a lot of Neutro Milk Hotel.
Yeah,
Probably.
Like it doesn't come across in the audio. It doesn't come across in the way it sounds in the production. But I think it comes across in the way he does lyrics.
So Ian Cohen's review, the second one that was a 9, he mentioned that Letting Off the Happiness, which is Bright Eyes' like first official studio album, is in parentheses his On Avery Island to Fever's In the Aeroplane Over the Sea. And that comparison is like very spot on to me. And I had never like drawn those lines there before, but now that I have, it's like all I can think about.
Yeah, it's a lot of like writing from the perspective of himself, but also the perspective of a character that's basically himself.
Yeah,
which of course, like, that comes up a lot more later, but
I wouldn't say that Fevers and Mirrors is as like conceptually tight or as like maybe well written or as iconic as Aeroplane Over the Sea. But as far as like where they both were in their careers and how their writing shifted, I get it.
Yeah.
However, I don't want people to be like, why are you calling Fevers and Mirrors Aeroplane Over the Sea? Because I'm not.
Right. I can see like the comparison can be invited, but it isn't necessarily, it's not 1-to-1.
No, it's like on their own respective timelines, yes. However, when you put them up against each other, not as much.
Yeah. I like some of the choices of imagery that he goes with, like beading a necklace out of sweat, using the two different words of bead. And
I like
waves
that.
of chords crashing against the shore, waves, water, waves, sound. It's very like Poetry 101 kind of metaphor, but it works for me. Especially because of like the basically kind of adolescent emotion spraying that he's doing in this song.
Yeah,
He gets the drug references going right away.
Woo-woo!
You don't depend upon all the shit that I use to make my moods improve.
See, like, that's the exact type of line that, like, 15-year-old me would be like, oh my god, Connor, you're so deep. You're so right. But then 23-year-old me is like, okay, buddy, we've all tried Zoloft. Like, I get it.
Should we go on to track 2 then? A Scale, a Mirror, and Those Indifferent Clocks.
Former lovers, hers were green like July. Except when she cried, they were red. Now I know a disease that these doctors can't treat. You contract on the day you accept all you see is a mirror, and a mirror is all it can be. A reflection of something we're missing, and language just
Oh, yeah.
Hell yeah.
Good track 2, I think. It's starting to get a little more musically upbeat. Like, not lyrically, but like it blazes through like a couple of paragraphs in just over like a minute and a half. It's a lot of words in a very short amount of time.
To me, it kind of sounds like a sad clown dancing around the circus, but we're all the clown.
Yeah, we are all the clown.
This is the more energetic Connor. I don't quite have this one down pat. Where he starts singing a little louder, but he still sounds like he's crying, and like
it's like he's crying, but he's also trying to like drive really fast because he's late to work.
It also is like he sounds like he's a little out of breath, like very it's kind of like Modest Mouse guy getting chased by a hose.
Yeah.
He kind of has that same affect in that it's a lot of short breaths, and he doesn't seem to be keeping up with them because his emotions are coming out so hard. He also does the double tracking vocals on this track a bit, which I think doesn't sound very good.
Yeah, I think that decision was definitely a choice that he made for the song.
Or that Mike made, who knows?
True.
His voice in this is like, to me, sounding halfway between how he was in the first track and like how Theo Hilton from Nana Grizzle sounds when he really gets going.
Oh yeah,
Oh man,
I could see that.
This is the song where Connor likes to talk about God, and the Genius annotations for the line, "Now I know a disease that these doctors can't treat, you contract on the day you accept all you see." A very smart person wrote in the Genius annotations, "The disease is ... 2 paragraph spaces, life," in italics.
I love that.
You say that, and yet you neglect to mention that he also puts a gif of Dr. Manhattan from the Watchmen movie at the bottom of it, saying, "I can change almost anything, but I can't change human nature."
Dr. Manhattan wrote these Genius annotations.
Oh, absolutely. He was trying to understand human emotion. He decided, I guess I'll check out this Bright Eyes album. I have bright eyes.
Who watches the Bright Eyes?
Who watches the Bright Eyes?
Connor also says language just happened, it wasn't planned. And he goes on this like waxing poetic rant about how like God didn't make the earth, it just kind of happened. And then he ends it with in the room of my house where the light's never been, waiting for this day to end. So he ends all of that by saying, God made me, I am God's biggest mistake, and I want to go to bed. Which, me too.
What I want to know, like, I kind of understood, like, the first track instrumentally, but my thought on this one, when I got to the end of it, was, what led up to this 19-year-old meeting this producer and getting, like, this super lush-sounding instrumentation on this album? Like, I didn't take the time to look it up, otherwise I would have more to say here, but that just was a question to me.
I don't know how exactly this album came to fruition, but I know that Connor spent basically his whole youth, like, from the time he was even a barely appropriate age to be, like, going to shows and playing music and, like, putting it out publicly, so probably, like, 12, 13. He made his own band and started just, like, immersing himself in, like, the Nebraska music scene, because he lived in Omaha, which I guess is the best place to be for a Nebraska music scene. And he was just, like, he had, like, a high school band, he would go to all these shows, he was, like, making these connections as, like, a kid.
Yeah.
So it kind of, in that context, I guess it makes a little bit more sense that he would just kind of be setting up all these stepping stones for, like, all of his adolescence to lead him to, like, this great producer to make this, like, great album right after letting off the happiness.
Right.
It's like what happened to Ben Queller, another indie singer who got started when he was like 12.
Yeah, it could not be me. I was playing Neopets at 12.
Yeah, I guess Mike Mogus is like a member of the band as well.
Okay.
As of letting off the happiness. So he does, like, he's a multi-instrumentalist. He probably plays a lot of the instruments that you're hearing.
So he basically got started producing for Bright Eyes then.
Yeah, it seems like that. Like, his credits list for letting off the happiness is, like, twice as long as Connor's, as far as instruments go.
Letting off the happiness
that
is great.
tracks.
I honestly like Letting Off the Happiness, I think, better than this album. I like that it sounds like Connor kind of threw it into a dumpster and, like, shoved it through some trash and then was like, hey, it's lo-fi now.
I do really like albums that sound bad. Like,
yeah,
that's a thing about me.
It's a lot more, like, screaming Connor, a lot more, like, angry. It's way less, like, warbly. Which is a word that I have in my notes probably, like, 100 times while I was writing about this album, is warbly.
See, I do like yelling Connor. I don't think we get enough of it on this album, although it is on, like, 2 or 3 tracks at least.
He also has Desaparecidos, which is his, like, super political. I don't know if it's just him. It might be, or it might be a band. I really don't know. But I think they put out, like, one album. It's where he puts, like, all of his political rage that isn't quite as poetic. Because he kind of dips into that in Bright Eyes as well, and he always has. But Desaparecidos is, like, pretty much a political leftist punk band, and it's sick.
Yeah.
Nice.
My 2 favorite adjectives that Pitchfork reviewers like to use to refer to indie singers are warbling and bleeding.
The original reviewer, Taylor Clark, called him hypothermic.
Very funny.
Yeah.
Again, it's very much like he's right.
He's
but
right,
it's
but it's good, actually.
It's good, actually.
He's right, but we actually love to hear it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's a sound that we like.
I do, personally.
Also, God, I didn't even realize a scale, a mirror, and those indifferent clocks. Yeah, there's another scale in the title.
Yep.
he kind of got through all of them in the first 2 tracks, just in their titles.
Yeah.
Also, every time he says mirror in this album, he says it as one syllable, just mirror.
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 He's actually talking about the Russian space station.
He's talking, that's his nickname for his friend Vladimir,
Yeah, exactly.
who is on the Russian space station. He misses him.
Yeah. Mirror from mirror.
This next title I thought was really snappy as a teen. It's The Calendar Hung Itself.
Worried you smoke too many cigarettes. Is he coughing now on a bathroom floor for every speck of tile? There's 1,000 more you won't ever see, but must hold inside yourself eternally.
Which,
Ooh.
get it?
I like it. Yeah, I get it.
This one sounds like a pirate musical.
Yeah.
It does. It sounds.
It's
It sounded to
proto-Decemberist.
me. Yeah, Decemberist, and it also sounded like Arcade Fire to me. Like it sounded almost the exact same as Neighborhood Number 3 Power Out.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
I can hear that. I can hear
Yeah.
that. But of
I
course,
didn't
this predated those both. I
Yeah,
don't know if it predated
like-
the Decemberists entirely, but it definitely predates their popular output.
Win
I didn't
Butler
even-
is definitely a Conor Oberst fan.
Oh yeah.
I didn't even think about Decemberists and this song. But Decemberists are basically also just one big pirate musical.
It's true, and we love
Yeah,
it.
and they slap.
They do slap. We love to hear the pirates. It's like you're at Disneyland, but it's free.
Yeah. All music is free, don't you know?
This is another sad song about wanting to die because a girl doesn't love him. I think. That's kind
This
of
one,
what
kinda
this,
hard
one
to tell.
this one is the more like incel anthem vindictive version of that, though.
Yeah. Well, almost every single line of this album does have an annotation on Genius, so we could just read the entire thing and know
could.
exactly what the song is about, because everyone on Genius is always correct.
Always objectively correct. But no, I feel like it works in that context, as much as, like, you know, incel male rage towards rejection is, you know, 1, played out, and 2, just like, you know, not great to hear in 2020. I think the way that he like kind of goes into the frame of this like basically character that he's playing in this song works really well. He has like a kind of like a rising bile in his throat. You could really feel like the sarcasm and vindictiveness that he's trying to put forward. And this is why I prefer yelling Connor to warbly quiet Connor.
I feel like he manages for the most part to capture that kind of like a girl broke my heart and left me without like entirely blaming her in the lyrics. It seems like he's mostly like, yeah, I'm a piece of shit and I'm sad. Which like if you're gonna do that played out borderline incel cliche, at least blame yourself for the sake of the listeners who are not men. And I appreciate that.
And also just like he's mostly focusing is like, is he good enough?
Right.
Is he doing these things that I would do? They're not like, I hate you specifically, your various slurs, you know, like pop punk was doing at the time.
Right. Yeah.
He avoided that little trap. So we can give him some props for that one.
I do really like that Genius took You Are My Sunshine and annotated it to explain the song You Are My Sunshine, My Only Sunshine. They're like, hey, this is actually like a children's song. And he's actually singing it into her answering machine, which he says directly. And also, do people not know that song?
Yeah, well, I mean, like, not only do people know that song, but specifically singing it into an answering machine, I'm pretty sure is a specific reference.
He said, I settled for
I know
a telephone
it happens on The
sang in your
Simpsons,
machine.
but every time that I think something is a reference to The Simpsons, it's a reference to something that I haven't seen, because it's out of my pop culture worldview.
Yeah, if
so
I know the Simpsons thing, it's usually that the Simpsons were referencing something else.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But yeah, Marge Simpson sings it into Lisa's answering machine when she's at the military school.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Barter at military.
See, I like The Simpsons, but I've never really taken a dive deep enough to like watch them regularly and retain those references.
Yeah, for me it was like...
I was just recently reminded of Milhouse's dad, whose name I forget, I'm sorry, drawing
Kurt.
Dignity. Kurt, yeah.
Yeah.
Drawing Dignity. And I think that's maybe the funniest joke that could have ever been made on The Simpsons, and nothing ever really tops that for me, except for maybe Millpool.
Yeah. The Van Houtens are a very pathetic family, and there is much comedy to be wrung from them.
I
sleep in a race car bed.
I sleep in a big bed with my wife.
I fully plan on getting either a Millpool or a Dignity tattoo, just to bring us back to the topic of like.
It's got to be Dignity.
It's probably going to be Dignity, yeah.
The word dignity for me is inextricably linked with Mulan, when the matchmaker does that thing with her fingers and draws the mustache on her face. Dignity.
Again, that was buried deep in my gray matter, so thank you. Yeah, this whole song is really heavily annotated, but it's mostly saying like what you can probably glean if you've ever like read poetry or listened to a song and tried to understand it. Is basically like Connor is sad. He like looks for this girl that left him and other women and only sees her and is angry about it and is sad. And that's the gist of it. I do like that in this song he sings, "She had eyes bright enough to burn me. They reminded me of yours." And all I wrote there was, "Hey, like the band name."
Like the band name. I literally pogged when I heard that. I made the PogChamp face IRL. I was also doing Leonardo DiCaprio pointing at the TV.
Yeah.
That specific meme.
Yeah.
Yep, that's
this
the
is
one
an
I was
audio
thinking
medium.
We love to verbally explain what memes look like.
Yeah, exactly.
It's you, Connor? You're the American Psycho?
Look, if I could make an image pop up in someone's podcasting app, I would do it.
Yeah.
But I don't know how to make that happen.
One day.
Yeah, I'll figure out how to put that meme into the spectrogram of this podcast.
Yeah, exactly. We'll pull an Aphex Twin. It'll sound like shit, but it'll work.
We could just like send out like a little mailer to everyone who's subscribed and be like, okay, turn to page 4. Well, you will see a picture of Leonardo DiCaprio pointing at the television.
If our art wasn't so good, I'd say just make it the episode image. But our art's good, so.
It is good.
Who did the pointing at the TV meme? The pointing at the TV meme? DiCaprio?
No! I'm so shocked that meme is still kicking enough for you to even reference it on this podcast currently. That has to be like a month old. That's like 5 shelf lives at this point.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's an emoji in our tuning fork.
Our friend Brooks likes to say Kafifi still in the year 2020, so.
Oh, this I know. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well aware of this.
This is just how we operate in this sphere.
Yeah, it's sometimes you're not ready to let go, and that's, makes it really funny. Is there anything else to even say about this specific song?
I don't think so.
I don't think so either.
Moving on to something vague.
And you sink in your chair, brush the snow from your hair, and drain the cold away. And you're not really sure what you're doing this for, but you need something to fill up the days.
Yeah, there's not much going on in this one.
I got big, like, Jack Johnson energy from this intro.
Yeah. The accordion was unexpected here, but I like it.
If for some reason anyone listening has not already, like, heard any Bright Eyes before, this is going to be such a fun adventure to be hearing, like, warbly Conor Oberst and, like, accordion and, like, pirate musical.
Yeah, it's kind of it's one of the first like the earliest albums that I can think of that got like really popular while also being musically all over the place.
Yeah, it's really, man, it's not very cohesive. Like, aside from the really explicit attempt to keep using the same words over and over again as symbolism, it really, like, it's rough.
He wrote all these lyrics during homeroom. Between science class and social studies class.
And then went to his friend Tim Kasher to play the accordion for him.
Yeah.
Just looking at the album credits.
This song is big on the urban isolation themes.
Yeah, the line, "As you climb up the stairs to that coffin you call your apartment," I have been there, and that feeling is bad. It feels bad, and it is bad. And, like, coming home and being like, I don't like where I live, is enough to make you write a whole Bright Eyes album.
Yeah. Also just living with places that have dark winters. We understand this mood.
We do understand this in the state of Minnesota.
Yeah, I am currently the most south latitudinally, because I am well south of Minneapolis.
Yeah, which is odd
you really?
because Canada.
Yeah. Ontario goes very south.
Huh. Well, yeah, it's really dark here all the time now. This is my second winter ever. I used to live in San Diego, so this is it's Bright Eye season for me. I'm still trying to cope.
You're lucky to have missed you're lucky to have missed the winter before that, because boy, it was a time.
Yeah, that was polar vortex winter, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was.
Or one of the two
bad.
polar vortex winters.
Yeah,
I remember
the other
it
one was
reached
2013.
It reached minus 60 a couple of times.
Whew.
Yeah, hated it.
My entire because I already had long withstanding plans to move to Minnesota while that was happening. I think I actually ended up moving here like the March after polar vortex. So we were just barely missed it. And I had every relative who knew that I was moving texting me like, "Are you sure you still want to move to Minnesota?" And I'm like, "Yup, I already have paid my first month's rent and the deposit is down. I actually can't back out now. I have also quit my job. So goodbye, everybody. Goodbye, 70 degrees. I'm
going to live
into the vortex.
in ice hell."
Yeah.
Yep.
But you don't really have to pay for heating in this state if you rent an apartment like me, which is pretty sweet.
That is nice.
Heat's included for us too.
Yeah, because otherwise we'd all die. Anyway, Conor Oberst in the song sounds like he's being constantly tickled, and he's fed up with it.
Again, he's being chased with the hose.
Yeah,
100%.
it's just being chased with the hose core.
It's one of our favorite genres on Tuning Fork.
Yeah.
This song actually is like pretty, like I say this about all of them, but this one is pretty like desperately sad. Like this one's a special, I think this is the first one on the album that is like, oh, this is like actually really maybe somewhere beyond like teen sadness into adult sadness, and now I am sad as an adult.
It's like the fog of like a desperate depression following them around.
Yeah,
that's basically what the something vague is, right?
Yeah. It gives
like,
me the same vibe as like the Jitters by the Dismemberment Plan.
Yeah.
Yeah,
or
it's like a lot of like dream imagery, but it's not dreaming. It's like depression mania fog. Maybe not mania, more like depression fog.
Yeah. It really just kind of reminds me of a lot of tracks off of Electroshock Blues by Eels, which is actually brought up in the first review, is that a later song on this album just kind of sounds like an Eels song. But for me, it's like the part that really reminds me of Eels is just like how like desperate the depression sounds, like how much they managed to convey that, which is something that like that Eels has a gift for, and Conor also has for. Like really kind of just like pushing that forward, and that's why this is one of my favorite tracks on the album too. It's just I think it really worked.
Yeah, I think that this album follows kind of a vague timeline of how Conor or his caricature of himself is doing. And I think this song is kind of the point where he kind of breaks and just kind of surrenders into all of the like desperate sadness that's kind of been building up maybe more behind the scenes from the other songs. And like he was kind of angsty before. He was a little angry at the world, a little like upset about his love life. And now he's just kind of sunk into this place where he's like, I am not going to get out of this. And I'm just going to wander around in a sad dream.
Sadly, you talking about the similarity to Eels made me Google Bright Eyes Shrek. And I don't think there's any connection there, unlike with Eels.
That's why Eels is obviously the better band, because there's an Eels song on every Shrek soundtrack.
Yeah,
I'm glad that
they became
you
Shrek
Googled
band.
Bright Eyes Shrek, though. That's good. That's a good thing to have in your history.
I think we're going to need someone to just make a quick edit of Conor with Shrek ears and a green face, and just pop that into our mentions real quick.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm going to forget I said this, so it's going to be a fun surprise when it shows up.
That'll be so silly to see.
Anywho, which one is even next? Oh yes, the movement of a hand.
Grows like ivy across the wall, and it bounces off of the painted porcelain of tiny dancing doll. Her body spins as she pirouettes again. The world suddenly seems.
I like this one a lot.
Yeah, I do too. I like the electric piano.
Oh yeah, this is the one that they said sounds like an Eels song, and I get it.
Yeah.
Yeah. The electric piano. I did my first like taking notes listen through pretty late at night after a very long tiring shift at work. So I wrote down that it reminds me of the video of the cat playing the electric keyboard.
Oh, the keyboard cat.
Yeah, keyboard cat. That was the very first image that popped into my mind before any of the words started. So I just wanted to give.
What if keyboard cat had clinical depression?
Pretty much.
Keyboard cat, but in minor key.
Oh God.
No. We hear like a new Conor voice in this one where he does some like high soft notes without warbling quite as much. He's kind of able to control himself a bit, which I appreciate.
That's Eels Connor.
Eels Connor. Connor Eels Burst.
Yeah, exactly.
That sounds uncomfortable.
It's like Alien.
Yeah.
It's just
I don't
like Alien.
If there's anything I know about Bright Eyes, is that they did the soundtrack to Alien by Ridley Scott.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah, absolutely.
Conor Oberst actually played the little chest burster. That was him as a baby.
Like the one on the end. Yeah.
That was filmed in Omaha, Nebraska in the early 90s.
Yeah. That's why John Hurt was never a big Bright Eyes fan.
It wasn't even a set. Omaha just looks like that.
Yeah, it does.
I really like the line, "And you lay your head onto my shoulder, pour like water over me." It's very evocative in a way that I really get.
Yeah, it's really
just
it's
like kind of like, you know, when you it's very sweet.
Which you don't.
It's kind of a nice feeling in an ocean of bad feeling.
Yeah, it's one of the only like Bright Eyes lines in this album that you hear and you're like, oh, that's really nice. That gives me a good feeling. And I can feel that good feeling for a moment. Oh no, what's that? It's the next line.
Yeah, well, it's also just like, you know, it's a melancholic, like, recalling of that feeling.
Yeah, it's like about
it's like you're like, oh, that's nice, and you're like, oh wait, no, he's only recalling this feeling. He doesn't have it right now.
It's like if any of the lines in this album were to be called a milkshake duck, it would be this one.
Like the imagery of this, like I couldn't put it into words, so all I have written in my notes is the cinematography.
Yeah, the way he's like describing the tree lines on the drive.
Yeah,
well, it's nice. You
exactly.
get like
it's a mood piece for sure. I mean, the whole album's a mood piece, but like just like that last verse of the song works.
Starting with the "you lay your head on my shoulder," you get like 5-6 lines of like happy, good imagery of like him with this person in a car, and he's like, "If I just exist for the next 10 minutes of this drive, that would be fine." And you're like, "Oh, that's sweet." And then he immediately says, "Soon all the joy that pours from everything makes fountains of your eyes, because you finally understand the movement of a hand waving goodbye." And it's like, oh, good. You were just setting up all this nice stuff to say, and it always eventually goes away. So, bye.
Bye-bye.
Goodbye, happiness. This song is like, again, one of the few songs on this album that I listen to as a mostly formed adult, and I'm like, this is really, really sad. Like, to this day, is very sad.
Yeah,
it's
still
just
like
kind of
works.
like, it's like a yearning, kind of heartbreaking, like, watching good things fly out the window kind of sad, which is like a type of sadness that really, really gets me personally. Mm-hmm. So that like yearning car ride is a painful motif that a lot of artists like to use, and it always just hurts me.
It's really easy to see like why this was popular with the age group that it was, given the feelings that it brings to bear. Yeah,
like Conor in this song was probably talking, if this is anecdotal from his actual life, was probably talking about like someone he had a really like powerful emotional relationship with, who, you know, they broke it off for one reason or another, and he's thinking fondly back. But for teenagers, someone didn't ask you to homecoming, and now you're listening to Movement of a Hand and being like, I can completely relate.
Exactly. Yeah.
Which is so cute. Like, the sadness that I thought I was feeling in high school is just adorable.
Oh, it's so different than just like that, you know, that full world-consuming dread that we feel now.
Yeah, exactly.
Aren't you glad that this is going to come out, like, on Election Day?
Oh, God.
I'll try to get it out before then, hopefully.
If it...
Everyone listen to Bright Eyes and watch the polls.
Pokemon Go, listen to Bright
good
Eyes.
Feeling.
Yeah,
I
just take your psyche and stab him in the fucking chest.
The movement of a hand to sign the ballot to go to the polls.
Kids these days are listening to the movement of a hand, but they're not doing the movement of the hand to put their ballot on the box.
So this is a little bit of a tangent, still Bright Eyes adjacent. He recently put out a song that is about, like, and for, like, people listening who are sensitive to reproductive issues, maybe skip ahead a little bit. But he put out a song about a really horrible abortion.
I remember hearing about that.
Yeah. He put out a song basically about, like, a coat hanger abortion, which I really wish cisgender men would not write songs about, but alas, it's out. And he's, like, donating all the proceeds to Planned Parenthood, which, cool, great, but also it's, like, sometimes I think that certain musicians who are never going to have the worldly experiences that they are writing about should write their song and put it in a diary and never record it and never put it out. And just leave it there. And, like, he didn't have to do that. And I appreciate that he's always been a like, political indie dude, because I feel like that, you know, like, I feel like a lot of people in the indie sphere during the time that Bright Eyes was super, super popular weren't really remarkably overtly political. So it was cool when he released songs like When the President Talks to God about George Bush and, like, all of that. But it's like, you are, like, 40 now. You are very far away from this issue. You're probably in a financial place where this is never going to be a concern of yours. And it just feels a little yucky to me.
Yeah.
And
I read about that and I just kind of made a face at it and said, well, at least it's for a good cause, I guess.
I'm, like, obviously, like, a huge Bright Eyes fan, so I was like, cool, new Bright Eyes. Not gonna read the lyrics, not gonna read the caption that he posted on Instagram. Let me just jump right to Bandcamp, get my little AirPods on, and jump in. And then I got halfway through the song, and I was like, I am actually physically sick listening to this. I'm gonna turn this off now. And it is the one musicians during 2020 election heartbreak that was worse than the Postal Service telling me to go vote.
God.
The pain that I experienced. I've always said I don't want another Postal Service album, but then when it was right there, I was like, you know, maybe I could go for one of those.
I could vibe with that right now. I could go for that.
Maybe
I could go for some
having.
of Jimmy's funky little noises.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe I could have some. And then Bed is like, just kidding. Pokemon Go to the polls.
Christ's sake.
Take the death cab to the polls.
It's like between that and the fucking, like, West Wing Get Out the Vote election special, it's like the people who care about these things are the people who are already voting and are already in a position to vote safely.
Yeah, and what I decided to cause myself further psychic damage on the Bright Eyes Instagram post by looking at the comments, and people were like, why are you getting political? And it's like,
people will say that on System of a Down. People just do not have self-awareness.
People will say that about Rage Against the Machine. And it's like, I need you to hear what you're saying and maybe re-listen to some of this music.
Who do you think the machine is in this allegory?
The machine is my dad.
The machine is a clock, and we watch its hands move in the mirror.
The machine is a mirror and a spindle and a scale and water and a girl.
And a locket. And a noose.
And a necklace.
And some pills.
Yeah.
So I guess after all these tangents, we should move on to Area Net.
Probably.
Yeah.
Take my hand, this barren land is alive too high, but the wind carries sounds that I can't see from beyond that line.
Speaking of girl.
Yeah, this one's kind of a us against the world anthem, holding on to like the person you love while the world falls apart, which is really just a metaphor for his own personal life.
Yeah, the genius annotations on this are a treasure trove. I think that one person said, I'm trying to pull up the exact wording because I'd really like to know. It might have also been on the classic website songmeanings.com. But I was trying to figure out...
Which is mentioned in one of the Pitchfork reviews, which I really found... I really liked that.
Is it really?
Yeah, it's mentioned, I think, in Ian Cohen's review, which would make sense, because 2012 is when that site was really popular. And I guess Fevers and Mirrors for a while was one of the most annotated, or one of the most commented albums on the whole site.
Interesting.
So the one from Song Meaning said just that Arionette is his antidepressants, which is really, really funny. Because I'm imagining him writing like an Us Against the World song for like his Prozac.
I did sing a song about my venlafaxine for an improv show once. It was very short, and I used the actual pill bottle as a maraca.
I love that.
It was very fun.
I trust you with that musical endeavor. Conor Oberst writing a song about running through a cornfield with his Prozac is just the best imagery. And then
while crying, obviously.
While the world's falling apart, he's like, at least I have you. Oh shit, I only have 4 days left on this prescription.
And my doctor's closed on the weekend.
But then Genius says that Arionette is a made-up word and not a name. Aria meaning song, and marionette meaning puppet, and Arionette means song puppet, and then I quote, but there is a Greek joke in there. I reign aret, virtue who is always speaks, literally virtue always pouring forth. This Greek joke and wolf references in the song are elucidated by the fact that Connor's birthday is February 15th, the date of the Roman festival Lupercalia.
This person's brain is fucking huge. This person has a gigantic brain. This is the person who walks into, like, Game of Thrones theory posts and says the moon is an egg.
Arionette is also phonetically similar to Ariadne, who was abandoned by Theseus after she helped him kill her brother, the Minotaur, and whom Dionysus later married. By some accounts, she became immortal by marrying up, so to speak. The Ariadne illusion may have more contemporary associations as well.
Jesus Christ!
Can you guess what the next name is going to be? It's Friedrich Nietzsche. Friedrich Nietzsche referred to Cosima Wagner as his Ariadne. Connor may be alluding to her because he has synesthesia.
That makes sense if you think about it.
Thanks for this brain quest. Anonymous poster. I love this.
How does this only have 5 upvotes? I need to, like, create an account so I can upvote this.
It has been marked as missing something by Zinstein.
Fuck you, Zinstein. This guy is literally Wojak, whose brain has created a hot air balloon and also the basket underneath the hot air balloon in which he is standing and floating around the earth.
This is Wojak, like, laying on the couch, and his brain makes, like, the couch and a chessboard and another Wojak that he is beating in chess.
Exactly.
The perfect Mars Volta fan.
And the last sentence of this harrowing annotation is, this can end up being a very personal joke since Mr. Oberst has synesthesia himself. How do you know that?
Does he?
I don't know.
This is not cited. Citation needed.
The only thing that's cited is the Roman Festival of Wolves.
Jesus Christ.
You know what? I believe it.
I'm just going to say that, yeah, that's what it is. So that makes Arionette a wolf song puppet with synesthesia.
I think the idea of a woman named Song Puppet to sing your sad songs about is like very close to the kind of imagery he seems to be going for with this, and that it's like very overwrought and also kind of self-effacing. So literally calling his muse of the song Puppet would be like on brand for the
Yeah.
song and the types
that-
of songs he's writing.
That gives me like Flaming
That
Lips
part
energy.
of it kind of works.
Yeah.
He might
I-
also just think it's a pretty name.
I don't think that Conor Oberst's self-aggrandizing sadness when this was recorded in 1999 was even close to being deep enough to think of Song Puppet.
No.
Much less the Roman Festival of Wolves.
No.
Lupanagia.
That's honestly,
is
that's probably the
one
best Genius
of-
annotation I've ever seen.
This is one of I think at least 3 waltzes on the album. It's in 3/4 time, which according to my friend Caitlin, it was a thing that a lot of Omaha bands did at the time, like Cursive, for example.
Oh, that's cute.
Cursive is the band that the accordion player is in.
There you go.
I guess all these Saddle Creek bands kind of just shared members for their recordings a lot, I assume.
Yeah.
Makes
Judging
sense.
by the credits on these albums.
And at the end,
Overall,
it's got that classic move of including like some random studio background noise,
yeah.
like shuffling and sniffing and stuff
Yeah.
like that.
the random studio setup in this album just gets so fun later on.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Aaron
I mean, this
Annette-
one kind of just works into the next song because the next song is recorded like on a single mic, or at least it sounds
Yeah.
like it is.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
sounds so. Arianette to me is not a remarkably exciting song. It's not one of my favorites, even if she is this extremely complex Nisha-like character. It just doesn't do it for me personally.
So then we move into
when the curious girl realizes she is under glass.
When I wake up, I'm finding my brother and I'm making him take me back down to the water, that lake where we sailed and we laughed with our father. I will not desert him, I will not desert him. No matter how I may wish for a coffin so clean, or these trees to undress all their leaves onto me, I put my face in the dirt.
so that the studio noise that kind of continued off the last track kind of just goes into the start of this one, where he starts like banging on the piano like Greg in Over the Garden Wall,
Yeah, and
like
singing
boom,
from the
boom,
other
boom,
side of the
boom.
room. Yeah.
Yeah,
and then he
he's
sings
definitely
potatoes
like,
and molasses for us. Wait, sorry, potatoes and molasses.
I'm
This is a metaphor for my sadness.
I'm halfway surprised that Conor Oberst didn't like beg the creators of Over the Garden Wall to put a song in there.
If the songs
Yeah.
weren't primarily made by like one musical group, I'm sure they would have.
Yeah,
But it was like one group that was responsible for pretty much all the music.
yeah.
But yeah, no, he seems like he would
Oberst to
work
the
in
garden
there.
wall.
Oberst the Garden Wall, indeed.
Yeah.
Kids will watch Over the Garden Wall, but won't hop over the garden wall to go to the polls.
Kids won't
this-
go over the garden aisle to talk with the opposing party.
Reach across the aisle.
We need to shake hands over the garden wall.
Yeah.
The Rose Garden Wall.
Oh, I like it.
Thanks. This song kind of sounds like a suicide note. Like, genuinely kind of sounds like a final song. So this,
It does.
if we're following the timeline of Conor's despair throughout the album, this is kind of a contemplation song where he's kind of like planning for the short future he thinks he has.
Yeah.
He straight up says he wishes for a coffin so clean.
Or these trees to undress all their leaves unto me. Just being a corpse in a forest.
Yeah, he says, I put my face in the dirt, and then I finally see the sky that has been avoiding me. I think if he had just put his face in some really good, healthy, like, nutrient-rich dirt before he wrote this album, we might not have this album today.
Here, Connor, eat some dirt.
Rub some dirt on it, Connor. Rub some dirt where it
Some
hurts.
dirt on it and get up.
He went to the garden center at Home Depot and he was like, "Your finest nutrient-rich dirt, please. I have an album to record."
I need to tamp the soil, please.
None of that fancy stuff with the nutrients.
I don't want those little white pellets in there. I just want the pure stuff.
Where I come from, we smoke dirt.
We like stems. We like seeds.
That's just how I grew up.
I'm really sad that the Bernie versus Hillary weed memes didn't make a resurgence in 2020 with like
It's too
Biden
bad.
and Bernie. I don't know if
Yeah.
anyone else remembers those.
That's
or
the
if that
only
was just
example
something I
that
made
I've
up.
seen. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, he mentions his brother, and like his brother being in the water and him not deserting him. There's a lot of water in this album as well.
I do like how that one comes up later.
Yeah. Yeah, that one's fun.
We'll get to it. We'll get to it.
He also mentions the pills that I take to balance my brain, which is Arionette.
They're back.
Apparently. They're back.
We are all.
We are all Arionette.
We
It
are all
ends
take
with
pills
the,
to balance our brain.
I take responsibility
To balance your brain.
to balance my brain.
It ends with the sound of a phone off the hook, which is a sound that kids these days won't recognize.
Meanwhile, I was like looking at my phone repeatedly, trying to see if it was like if I had accidentally dialed something with my ass.
Yeah.
I
But
had not
I don't
dialed
think
anything
cell phones
with my
do
ass.
that.
It was in fact coming from my headphones.
Yep. It's that
Gotta
good
love that,
production.
gotta love that effective stereo panning.
Yep.
Kids these days don't recognize the sound of the phone off the hook because they won't get off their phones to hook to the poles. Thanks, everybody, for letting me on your podcast.
The telephone poles.
Yeah, this song's really sad. Again, it's not like... This is kind of middle of the road for me. I don't feel super strongly about this song one way or another. Like, I like the piano. I like that it's a little angrier. There's, like, a little more energy. But it doesn't really, like, super stand out on the album to me.
For me, the way it's recorded kind of kills it for me, because like a lot of his voice is kind of washed out in the real banging that he's doing on that piano.
Yeah, and I want
And
him
like
closer.
I can appreciate a good lo-fi track. I just don't think the way this one was recorded works for me. But I can see what he's going for.
I feel like, see, it's so strange to me to see him try to do lo-fi and not do it well, because Letting Off the Happiness did it well through the whole album. And so it's like he's kind of trying to like ride that line between like fleshed out and more lo-fi, and I don't like that he kind of takes the middle ground on a few of these songs. And it's like, I need you to commit one way or the other, because either side of the garden wall, so to speak, would have been great. But he's right on top of it, and it's just kind of uncomfortable.
It sounds like they put the microphone inside the piano.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, that's approximately how it sounds.
Yeah.
It's hard to pretend to be lo-fi. You have to, like, actually use shitty equipment.
Yeah.
Mike Mogus was just too good at his job at this.
Yeah.
Halai, 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 halai.
Hola, 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 hola. Persuaded must be satisfied. You offer only one reply. You know not what you do, but you tear your hair from roots of that same head. You're twice removed. Now a lock of hair you said would prove our love would never.
I want to start talking about this with the Urban Dictionary entry for halai.
Please do.
Which was written by a user called halai in 2006. Definition number 1 is an angsty and/or emo teenage girl. Definition number 2 is a girl that breaks your heart. And definition number 3 is a chant of heartbreak. So the reason that I got to this page is because I was like, is this a word? And it turns out, no, it's not.
It's not. I love that because it was totally just some people like listening to the song, having a sleepover, who were like, let's make an Urban Dictionary like entry about this, which is 100% something I would have done in between watching Fall Out Boy music videos when I was younger.
Yeah, exactly. It was very emblematic of the time.
Yeah, I would have been like, okay, I'm going to pause a little less 16 Candles, a little more Touch Me music video with all the vampires, and I'm going to go write an Urban Dictionary entry about a Bright Eyes song, and then I'm going to go back to watching Fall Out Boy. And that's basically what I did in high school.
Uh-huh. I tremble to think of the Urban Dictionary entries that I wrote. I know there's a couple of them, but I don't want to go looking for them.
Yeah, same.
I actually don't think I wrote any. I think my friends probably did, but I was never like clever enough to think of something for them that would actually be
We were
funny.
definitely just writing in jokes from the forum we were both on into Urban Dictionary.
Nice.
So
way to
that's
do
kind
it.
of how that went.
I like this song because it's like a total tone shift from the previous song. Kind of sounds like a come down, whereas like Curious Girl was kind of like angry and like really high energy and up there and like tense. And then you kind of get into this song and it almost sounds like something off of an album he recorded later called Casadaga, which I love. I think Casadaga is my favorite Bright Eyes album, partially because Casadaga is a psychic compound in Florida, which is super cool. But when I was listening to the song, I was showing it to one of my friends because he had also never listened to this album. And this was the point in which he said, man, he is not a good singer. Which I think is probably said at least once by one of my friends about all of my favorite artists. So
yeah,
I'm desensitized to it at this point.
Yeah, understandable. I mostly like musicians that aren't good singers.
And I like that this song is like a little fuller sounding versus the weird thing he was trying to do in the last song. It's like just a total like 180 kind of palate cleanser from Curious Girl. It's like a better balance of like his warbles and his yelling, and it's a little punchier.
Yeah, we get some good yelling, Connor, on this.
Hello, my name is Connor, and I'm here to show you my warbles.
I like the reference when it's talking about the words we spoke on Freezing South Street that says, no, don't worry, we're not talking about Philadelphia. This is the place in Omaha. I like to imagine that they are talking about the one in Philadelphia, and when they're freezing on South Street is actually just when they're in line for getting a cheesesteak at Jim's on South Street.
A cheesesteak.
Thank you.
I like anything that starts with "Don't worry, this isn't in Philadelphia." This song is about like Connor realizing that like the girl that he broke up with or who broke up with him, probably the same girl referenced in the previous songs, are like hanging out with another guy, and he's like on the phone with his friend who says, I didn't want to tell you this. It's just some guy she's been hanging out with, I don't know, for the past couple weeks, I guess. And then the image he paints is of him saying, well, thank you, hanging up the phone, and then he says, let the funeral start, hear the casket close. And I'm like, damn, dude, I need you to tone it down a little bit.
Yeah, but like, knowing that feeling in my youth, it kind of does feel like that, though.
Yeah, it's just so funny to see it written out and hear it sung by someone else and vocalized outside of, you know, the gray matter of a teen brain. It's like,
I can't believe you left me on scene.
Yeah, it's like, I just love the image of, so as it's playing in my head, Conor Oberst is standing at a wall phone. He says, well, thank you. He hangs it up. You hear a click. He turns to face the camera, does Jim from Office face, and goes, let the funeral start.
And then he does like, you know those Lipton iced tea commercials where they fall backwards into a pool? That like suddenly appears behind them. It's that, but it's a casket. And he just does like the Lipton iced tea fall into a casket.
And then the Helena music video starts.
Fuck, I want to make a music video now. That sounds like a really good idea. I think a reference to the Lipton iced tea commercials is what we need in our 2020 music videos.
I think so. I think we should bring back the claymation brisk commercials.
Fuck, yes.
I was recently shown I don't even remember what like mediocre pizza chain it is, but there were like some CGI rat things that were singing. No, it was Quiznos. It was Quiznos rats.
Yeah.
Oh, you mean the We Like the Moon commercial?
Yeah. They had like human mouths and human eyes. I
feel like we've talked about this commercial on Tuning Fork before.
Yeah, see, the thing is, Chuck, you're just really showing how much younger than us you are. Because those are an internet staple. I never saw
those on TV. So my boss actually was like, oh, remember Quiznos Rat? And I was like, no, boss, I don't remember Quiznos Rat. Are you okay? And so she went upstairs with me to the company desktop and searched Quiznos Rat, and we watched every single one that was on YouTube.
See, the thing is I remember those as the guys from rathergood.com, because that's what they were.
Yeah, Quiznos got in touch with a guy who made a popular Flash cartoon, and they were like, hey, can we do that?
Can we do that for a commercial about sandwiches?
I just hope that,
and everyone was confused.
I hope that, like, computer historians in the future, without any of that context, find it in the same way that I did, without any of the context. And I was disoriented for the next, like, 2 hours. Just knowing that this is something that aired on television with no previous knowledge of it at all. And just hearing these little demons going, it's crunchy and toasty at my place of employment.
Do you guys still have Quiznos around you? Or did they all get destroyed?
I think most of them closed. They used to be around like 5 years ago.
My hometown is like weirdly into Quiznos in that there's like 3 of them in what is not a very big city.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is, but Quiznos just does really well there.
Yeah, I don't.
Yeah, we're more of a Jersey Mike's town over here.
Yeah, that's true. It's regional restaurant differences are weird, man. California is Subway territory, and then I come out here, there's like not really any Subways. People mostly think it's gross, which it is. But then I go to, they're like, oh, Jersey Mike's is better. And I go to Jersey Mike's and I immediately get food poisoning. And I'm like, all right, cool.
I go to Minnesota and I see that there's a chain called Topper's Pizza, but it's not the same Topper's Pizza that we have in Ontario. And I get really mad because they're ripping off the Ontario brand of Topper's Pizza, which has existed since 1982. Come on. Come on, Minnesota.
I had to learn what getting caribou meant when I moved out here. I was like, excuse me, what the fuck are you saying? And they were like, do you want a caribou? And I'm like, like the small moose animal? And they're like, no, it's like Starbucks. I'm like, oh, well, you could have said coffee. Sure, I guess I'll have some of this caribou.
It's pretty good. I've only been there like once or twice, but
there's a caribou right next to my job that opens at 5:30 in the morning, and I usually work at 6, so I have gotten caribou a lot recently. And also, having worked at Starbucks in the past, I simply can't do that anymore.
No.
Anyway.
sometimes a place will ruin itself for you eternally.
Yeah, it sucks that I'm currently working at a grocery store, because I know that it's going to do that to this grocery store. However, I am probably better off without it anyway.
Yeah, there's better grocery stores,
or will be in the future.
Sure.
There are many other grocery stores.
Moving on to the center of the world.
In her hand and came to rest upon a beach with a million others there. We sat and waited for the sea to stretch out so that we could disappear into the
this is another one that doesn't really stand out to me that much. It gets interesting like halfway through, but by the time you really get into it, it's over.
Yeah, it just like has a death and then the song ends.
Yeah,
the real thing that stood out to me about this song was in the background there's that whispery Macintosh text-to-speech voice, which like any 90s kid definitely would recognize.
See,
it's like the Conor Oberst of Macintosh voices.
I didn't even catch that because my brain is not wired to 90s kid. I don't know if I count as one. I was 2 when the 90s ended, so probably not.
It is the one that sounds like somebody is like dying while they're trying to talk to you.
Well, yeah, that checks. I wrote down lyrics are pills, girls, sadness, all 3 of these things in a car.
I also wrote down a big bulleted list of all of the themes just as words.
Yup.
And I think that's what this song is.
Yeah, it's extra whiny, extra defeated, resigned, sad, and then like 2 minutes in, he's like, you know what? I'm sick of like being a wet blanket. Maybe I'll start like yelling and doing something interesting with my instruments. And then it's like, oh, this is kind of sick now. Why did you save the good part for the end instead of just doing the whole song like this?
Yeah. I was the one theme that I found was not present was mirrors, which really could have tied this all together for me.
Yeah, where's the mirrors? Where's the mirrors, Connor?
I could have used a scale in here, personally. Connor basically says, like, I tried to look up the like annotations and like the song meanings for these lyrics, and there's not really anything cohesive like happening here. And if it is anything cohesive, it's not remarkably interesting. He basically says this girl, who I'm calling a statue, probably because she's very pretty, turns him into sand, and then he just joins all the other sand, waiting for the ocean to take them to oblivion. And the only meaning I could glean out of that is like, girl dumped me and I just become another ex, and I am sad and want to be in the ocean. Goodbye. And that's about as deep as it gets.
Yeah.
Not as deep as the ocean at all.
Not as deep as the ocean, no. He does have a song called Mariana Trench, so he redeems himself in later albums.
James Cameron is down there. I don't know if you're aware of that.
James Cameron is always down there. You don't want to go see James Cameron. It's the worst thing you could find at the bottom of the Marianas Trench.
It's true, and there's a lot of weird shit down there.
Yeah. I guess then if there isn't anything interesting about this song left to talk about, we can go on to Sunrise Sunset, which is, to me, a much better song.
For a sunrise or a sunset, your lover is an actress. Did you really think she'd stay? For a sunrise or a sunset, you're either coming or you just left, but you're always on the way. Towards a sunrise or a sunset, a scribble or a sonnet, they are really just the same. To the sunrise or the sunset, the master...
Oh, this one's cool. I like this one.
Yeah, it's like a... Would this be considered like waltz-y? I don't really know anything about
it's another 3/4 time.
It kind of sounds
The
like
rhythm of it fucking rules.
Yeah, it sounds kind of like a steampunk, like Ren Fair on fire.
It's really, really dense for the first part of the song, and I was going, like, there's no way anyone would understand the words to this the first time unless they were reading the lyrics along with it. And I'm like, what would it sound like if a bunch of teens who knew the words to this were singing along to this live?
Oh man, like
it would just
like
sound
nothing.
like nothing. Yeah,
Yeah, absolutely nothing.
Sound.
I don't think I ever knew the lyrics to this song until like 2 days ago when I actually looked them up. All I ever got out of this was sunrise and a sunset, and just those 4 words.
Yep.
And maybe the, like, where are you Arianet at the end, and that's about it.
You're manic or you're depressed.
Yeah.
Folks.
The two
It's
genders. Ladies and gentlemen, manic and depression.
Sunrise and sunset.
You hold your sadness like a puppet. It's a sadness puppet to go with his music puppet and his depression puppet.
Maybe at the end he's saying, "Where are you, Arianet?" Because he's like, "Shit, I didn't take my pills this morning. Like that's why I'm so up and down today. I'll just go take those, and I'll be in tip top shape."
Yeah.
This song, like the way he's singing it, sounds like he's like a cartoon taking cartoonishly large steps as he sings.
Like through a sad town.
He's like swaying side to side as he's doing this one. It's very sea shanty.
Yeah, it's kind of like a big noodly cartoon, like Steamboat Willie looking kind of thing, where the background looks like it's just on a sphere and is kind of like rolling behind him as he just kind of sways down the street.
And he's bouncing in time with the music.
Oh yeah. He says it's a sunrise and a sunset from a cradle to a casket.
Yep.
The master and the servant have exactly the same fate. Folks, death comes for us all, including Henry Kissinger, including Donald Trump. This is not a threat. It's just, in fact, a fact.
It is just a fact. Yeah. And, you know,
a fact.
I will have different levels of excitement for when different people die. And that, too, is just human nature.
It's just human nature.
For some, it may be a party. And for some, it may be kind of sad. But, you know, who's to say which is which? Who's to say who I will ultimately get banned on Twitter for inadvertently threatening? Who knows? We just don't know.
You just have to follow it up by saying, in Minecraft.
In Minecraft. Yeah. Allegedly.
I am going to kill you, in Minecraft.
Yeah. Or you can just post it on Tumblr.
Or you just post it on Tumblr. It's fucking lawless over there now. It's great.
Except for what they perceive as peepees. Which are not for what they perceive as peepees. They're usually like...
You gotta keep those to the peepees room.
It's like a popsicle or like an ear of corn, and they're like, whoa, that's definitely peepees.
I had one image get flagged, and it was an image of me holding a bunch of scrambled eggs in my hand.
That should get taken down.
Yeah, the caption was, "I'm so fucked up breakfast." So...
It was your own personal egg post.
It was my own personal egg post, yeah.
I
personal egg post.
Oh, yeah. I stopped using Tumblr around like 20, I want to say like 15. I don't know. Yeah. It just started to get bad to me.
That's too late to get out undamaged.
I'm baby. So my 2012 Tumblr, the height of Tumblr for me, I was a freshman in high school. So I got irony poisoned at like 13, 14, and I've just been living like that ever since.
We all have the Joker damage tattoo on our faces.
Yeah, we
from
are
that.
all Joker
I'm
damage tattoo.
100% DeJonker by this point.
Yeah, we're all jonk over here.
Yeah.
If someone wants to give us a Conor Oberst, but he has Joker makeup and he has damage written across his forehead, just pop that in right next to the Conor Oberst Shrek. Thank you very much.
Can I actually
Yeah,
get
at Tuning Forkcast.
Can I actually get 2 of those? I really just want like an extra. I want to see 2 different interpretations of Conor Oberst as the Jonker that we know and love.
Yeah.
There are several different Jonkers. Jonker movies are coming faster than we could ever imagine now. Eventually, we're going to be getting a Jonker movie every 4 hours.
I can't wait.
We'll get the double Jonker event.
Yeah.
The esteemed double Jonker.
Yeah, exactly.
And of course, double Junker.
All right, what are we talking about? Music?
Well, yeah, we can move on from Sunrise Sunset, but I think that's like musically and even like the lyrics are basically nothing. It's very just like it's evocative. It gets the people going.
It's basically like
yeah.
every day is the same and we're all going to die, including Henry Kissinger, Donald Trump,
And
Let's see.
ourselves.
and ourselves.
Yep.
But yeah, no, it's like it's very pedestrian in that way. But I like it. I like to hear it.
Yeah.
Even the CIA agent that this podcast has flagged will eventually join the rest.
It's not a threat. It's just a fact.
It's not a threat. It's not a threat. I'm not a violent man. I can't even do a push-up. I'm not a threat at all.
Yeah. Join our Discord.
Join our Discord. Become the Joker.
Yeah.
Okay, I am itching to get into this next song because it's my favorite one.
It's good.
It's really good.
It's an attempt to tip the scales.
Who's gonna care if we were ever here at all? Well, summer's gonna come, it's gonna cloud our eyes again. No need to focus when there's nothing that's worth seeing. So we trade liquor for blood in an attempt to tip the scales. I think you.
So I am throwing. On Genius, it kind of breaks this up between its part 1 and its part 2. I think of them as one entity because I'm going by like the track listings. So I think it's only right that we talk about both Hydra heads of this song, if you will.
Of course.
The song itself is kind of like, it's a little softer, it's a little more indie. I can't quite put my finger on who it reminds me of. I don't know, there's some other like indie darling that definitely sounds like this, but I cannot remember who.
It is a little bit Microphones-esque.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, it might even be, shoot, I don't know. It's, maybe they all just kind of melt together at a point. I was gonna say the Shins, but I was like, I don't know if that's quite, like, exactly right. I don't know. So the song is about a breakup, again, kind of drinking through it, trading liquor for blood in an attempt to tip the scales. Conor Oberst did have, like, a really bad drinking problem for a lot of years, and I believe that carried over into when he was writing this album as well. So this is a very, like, direct experience that he had with alcohol, is kind of like, I'm gonna deal with it by drinking and tipping the scales, as in like maybe making it better for a second. Who among us has not had the urge, folks?
The every single line of this on Genius has an annotation, and I clicked through all of them, but my favorite one was the annotation for "They seemed so important at the time," which has a picture of like a guy with an emo swoop haircut and checkered Vans trying to climb upstairs and looking very sad.
Oh man, hang on. I'm heading there
I
now.
feel like he's being dragged down those stairs by some kind of entity.
This is Paranormal Activity.
Yeah.
I have those shoes. I wear them
You have
almost
those
every day.
shoes.
Yeah. Well, see, the best part about this is that these are outdoor stairs. So he's like getting dragged into a backyard and it looks like there might be some snow on the ground. And this also has one downvote. Yeah, wow. Every line of this is annotated, huh? I never even noticed that.
Yeah. It makes me wonder if this is like the most popular song from this album.
It probably is. I wouldn't say it's because of this first part, but yeah, it probably is.
Well, I mean, the second part, like the interview, is on its own page for this. So
Yeah.
if it was the second part, then that would be covered there. I'm loving the
That's true.
annotation on So Close to Dying that I could finally start living with this fucking just took first year psych ass explanation of what manic depressive disorder is. This is also typical for a manic depressive person. When you reach your absolute low, rock bottom, you can finally move up, start living again. The closer to dying he gets, the easier it's for him to start living again. And it's like, okay, fuck off.
Yeah, I don't. Sometimes the closer you get to dying, you kind of just keep going. Sometimes
You kind of
Sometimes
just keep
there's
getting
not
closer to
necessarily
dying.
a bottom. Also, the picture that they included is what appears to be like a rock with veins, which I hate to look at.
Folks, I'm just saying they got through the bedrock in Minecraft. It keeps going down.
Yeah, sure does.
It's all down from here. There is
Anyway,
someone
the
who,
interview fucking whips.
yeah, it does.
Yeah, it's good.
It's really, really good. I don't know if you read this in the Pitchfork review, but Conor Oberst is not the person talking as Conor
No,
Oberst.
absolutely not. It is someone doing a very funny impression of him.
It's so good. The song ends and it basically cuts right into this like fake radio interview. It's like quote unquote Conor Oberst, who is actually Todd Fink of the band The Faint, which is also based in Omaha. So yeah, these guys did just all run together forever. And like a radio DJ who is an actual DJ. And it's just so good. It's basically this guy Todd Fink just taking a piss on Conor Oberst and calling him a whiny little baby who wants attention.
Yeah, having this here inside the album makes it seem like Bright Eyes are more down to earth than they present in the rest of the album.
Right. And it's very funny because the Pitchfork reviewer for the first review just took it at face value.
Yeah, he hated
did
it.
not catch that it was fake.
And he hated it so much. It's like the radio interviewer calling him a genius. Like, he didn't seem to suggest at least that it was like, a skit, which it is. Like, this is just a skit. Like, that's what's here. But he was like taking it as if they were like, not making fun of themselves, which they clearly are.
The first interviewer, or the first reviewer on Pitchfork said, I simply cannot stress enough what a maddeningly self-indulgent, massive pseudo-depth this section of the album falls into. In this sickening chunk of narcissism, Oberst makes a laughable attempt to prove to his listeners that he is of a penetratingly deep intelligence by spouting strings of stale aphorisms that pass for rich understanding amongst those reluctant to have original thought. Fuck.
Yeah,
Thank you,
reviewer...
Holden Caulfield, for your Pitchfork review.
I can't believe they just called him a phony.
He said my hat was stupid, so I called him a phony and asked him where the ducks go.
It very much reads as like this 20-year-old reviewer is mad that this other 20-year-old is acting in a certain way.
Well, yeah, it's like, it's kind of funny because it's like the reviewer very much takes himself too seriously. Like, that's true throughout the entire review. And like, when I was 20 years old, I probably took myself too seriously, and I took the stuff I listened to too seriously. But he almost seems like, well, it's like he doesn't even imagine that Conor is not taking himself that seriously, and that's why he takes it all at face value.
Yeah, it never once crosses his mind
that's why he misses the point so hard, is because he has this idea that, like, that's his starting point, is this idea he has of Conor Oberst, that he doesn't even, like, stumble onto the idea that it's a joke, especially because you could literally hear Conor Oberst heckling Saddle Creek Records in the background, in the in the stereo pans.
The moment that you realize it's not even Conor Oberst who's speaking as Conor Oberst, the joke is just immediately clear, and it's immediately extremely funny. And I think that it would not have been nearly as funny if Conor was talking about himself. The fact that it's not even him is, like, genuinely a super funny thing on this album.
I love parts of this interview that I love particularly, where the interviewer asks him about AreaNet. I'd prefer not to talk about it in case she's listening. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't realize she was a real person. She's not, but I made her up. Genuinely fucking hilarious.
She's not real? Just as real as you or I? I don't think I understand. Neither do I, but after I grow up, I will. I mean, you know what? A lot of things are really unclear for me right now. And then...
No, I'm serious. My mother drowned one every year for 5 consecutive years. They are all named Patrick, and that's why they only got one song. It's kind of walking out a door and discovering that it's a window. How do you hear that and not think it's a joke?
Connor goes, "How long have you been working here?" The radio interviewer goes, "Oh, just a few minutes." Now, you mentioned empathy for others. Would you say that motivates you to make the music that you make? No, not really. It's more a need for sympathy. I want people to feel sorry for me. I like to feel the burn of the audience's eyes on me when I'm revealing all of my darkest secrets into the microphone. When I was a kid...
that he whispers that?
When I was a kid, I used to carry a safety pin around with me everywhere I went in my pocket, and when people weren't paying enough attention to me, I'd dig it into my arm until I started crying. Everyone would stop what they were doing and ask me what was the matter. I guess I kind of like that. Really? You're telling me that you're doing all of this for attention? No, I hate it when people look at me. I get nauseous.
He is a Twilight character.
In fact, I could care less what people think about me. Yeah, this is very much like Bella Swan energy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, of course, they go like, so you're going to play something for us now. Is this a new song? Yeah, but I haven't written it yet. Since one I've been meaning to write called A Song to Pass the Time.
The one thing that I really, really like about this interview, aside from the fact that it's the only, like, brand of humor that gets away with fitting in this album. I don't think anything else would have passed. Like, he couldn't do a funny, silly song. Like, this is the only thing, because it's, like, right along that vein of self-aggrandizing sadness. You're moving into self-aggrandizing, I don't know, I guess it's, like, what is the word? Self-deprecating humor.
How much of this do you think was written versus how much was just straight up improvised?
I really genuinely think a lot of it was improvised, because these are all like Saddle Creek guys. It really has that energy. This has to be Connor energy, which is so funny because that means he's genuinely like this. But I really like
sorry, go ahead.
I really like that he ends the interview by saying, or ends like the Q&A part of the interview by saying, "I really just want to be this warm yellow light that pours over everyone that I love."
Mood.
That line has like stuck with me for a really long time, and it's super corny, but it's kind of like the most prominent nugget of this whole album that teenage me holds on to and is like, that's really nice. I like that a lot.
Yeah. I also think like the very tone of this is the only place that is going to get away with an emo kids cutting themselves joke without me like immediately groaning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's like, it's not like a, I don't know, he's like,
it's speaking about like the imagery, it's speaking about the ideas people had about Connor, right? Like, right. Of course he's a little bit like this, but if like they're embellishing it for a reason.
Right, and just the idea, like, I'm glad that they went with like, I just like poke myself with a safety pin versus like I do something horrible and violent that, you know, people with suicidal ideation are actually prone to do. It's more of like I do this thing that I know is not genuinely going to hurt me, but it's enough to get me to cry so people would look at me. Which, like, who among us has not done something like that as a child, at least? I know I would do dumb stuff. I would, like, I would be throwing some kind of tantrum. My mom would get up and leave the room, and I would immediately stop crying, compose myself, walk into the room she was in, and fling myself onto the carpet and start screaming again.
Yeah.
And then he goes right into Song to Pass the Time.
To believe they've not touched anything at all, and the cars in the driveway only multiply. Well, they are lost in their houses. I've heard them sing in the shower, making speeches to their sister on the telephone, saying you come home, only you come here, don't stay so far away from me. This weather has me wanting,
which I really enjoy.
It's a good album closer, I think.
I do like this one. It's very like the suburbs are dehumanizing me and everything is clean and pristine and has no personality.
Yeah, the part that really gets me on a deep personal level is, "Will have locked my actions in the groove of routine, so I may never be free of this apathy." And I'm like, uh-oh, I have OCD, uh-oh, I feel this.
That's also just what capitalism is.
It's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, the whole, like, locking your sadness into a routine, that if maybe you could just get yourself to break a routine would at least loosen it a little bit, is a very real, helpful thing to recognize. So it's, I don't know, this kind of surprised me that he was even this self-aware, one, at 20 years old, and two, in the midst of what is otherwise just such an overly dramatic album.
Yeah. I mean, as someone who just quit a terrible job, let's hope.
Yeah, I will hopefully be joining you in a few months. here's to pursuing things that we care about.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a fan of that.
I like the, but I wait for a letter that's coming to me. She sends me pictures of the ocean in an envelope, so there's still hope. Yes, I can be healed. It's nice. This song is the one actual genuine glimmer of hope in this whole album. And it's
Good spot to put it.
It's a nice thing to put at the end, because I think it would be, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised, but it would be kind of a different album if they had put another sad, hopeless song right at the end. Even though this isn't entirely, happy, it is at least, I see a light somewhere that, someone can love me, I can be healed, things can be better. I know how I can get there, and I recognize that maybe everyone is kind of in this boat with me of, the apathy of routine.
Yeah. If it was a happy song, I don't think it would fit.
Right.
No. Not at all.
Just hopeful. It also falls into the pantheon of songs about themselves. It's the song about a song.
Yeah, definitely.
So all I have for the moment is a song to pass the time and a melody to keep me from worrying. It's some simple progression to keep my fingers busy and words that are sure to come back to me. And they'll be laughing. My mediocrity. It's such a funny fucking way to end the album.
It's like, I don't know. I feel like this is like...
He burst his own bubble. He spent the entire fucking album inflating it like a Mario Kart Party minigame.
Mario Part.
And then he just went, boop.
My Mario Part. Yeah, and it's kind of like a... it feels how I feel, because the album's like under an hour. It's not a very long album. So to have all this dramatic buildup crammed into about 40 minutes, and then to have him end it with like, I think I'm actually going to be fine. I'm just going to hang out. It's like...
I'm just gonna fucking vibe.
It totally feels like how I feel to this day when I have like a minor anxiety breakdown and I have to go lay in bed for a little bit, and then someone's like, have you eaten anything? And I'm like, shit, no, I haven't. And then I eat a sandwich and I'm like, you know what, guys? I think it's going to be okay. And it's like...
Yeah. When you're in an anxiety spiral and then you just go to sleep and you wake up and you're like, okay, I'm good.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like anxiety heel turn. And it's really, really like... It's always been so funny to me, even when I'm the one experiencing it. I'm like, this is...
Oh, yeah, no, it's definitely... Well, it's like, once you get into the post-anxiety spiral, you always feel like, oh, that was a bit melodramatic, huh?
Yeah, you like
go... What if he just ended the album like, like classic end of Two-Headed Boy Part 2 thing, where he like gets up and walks away from the stairs, and then you just hear just like slightly panned stereo left someone being like, that was all a bit melodramatic, huh? Like, that's basically what he did, but he did it in the song.
Well, and it's funny
anyway, I'm
because...
looking forward to hearing this song because he hasn't written it yet.
Yeah, it'll be really good when it's done.
Yeah.
But this seriously, like, this whole album just feels like that very specific kind of, like, the world is fucking ending, we are fucking under attack type of feeling that you get in, like, early adulthood when you're like, oh my god, it's always over something that in hindsight is just really silly, like being like, oh my god, I have to call out sick because I'm actually sick and my boss is gonna be mad. And then you go through all the feelings of this album, you convince yourself no one will ever love you, and then you fucking get up and eat breakfast and you're like, I can be healed. There is hope.
Maybe I'm good enough to go to work today after all.
Right? I'm just gonna be late. It'll be fine.
I just need to stop for a McDonald's breakfast sandwich and I'll be fine.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that Ian Cohen even mentions that in his, 9-point review. He says, in the thrall of fevers, sometimes these are the kind of things that do feel like the end of the world for at least an hour. And that's exactly...
I really like the phrasing of at least an hour.
Yeah, it's like... That's, it is valid to have a 1 hour world-shattering anxiety event and then get up and realize that you just hate your job.
Yeah.
So that's Fevers and Mirrors. And out of the whole thing, I'd say probably my favorite song is The Calendar Hung Itself. Just because I really like the instrumentation and the introduction of that specific Conor voice.
Yeah, I think that's the one I was most familiar with originally because I think Caitlin put it on a playlist that she sent me at one point. And this is after she applied all all the album art for this album was replaced by an image that she saw on Tumblr called Biebers and Mirrors, where it's just Justin Bieber's face in the middle of the mirror. And that, of course, is the one that was sitting in my iTunes library afterwards because it was attached to the playlist.
Oh, that fucking rules. Yep. I love that.
So it's Biebers and Mirrors to me.
Remember when Justin Bieber was a funny meme?
Yeah.
Oh, sure
now
do.
He's just some guy.
It's just kind of now like a tragic story of some guy.
Yeah, just a tragic
he's just
story
a
of some
man who
guy.
kind of sucks now.
Yeah. It's a shame. But yeah, no, I think the album it works as a whole. I don't know if I'd rate it as high as a 9.
Yeah.
Because, like, I enjoyed it, but I don't think I enjoyed it that much.
So for the sake of my teen self...
I don't have the teen's emotional connection that you have.
Yeah,
right? So I'm hearing this for the first time as a 29-year-old.
So, so a lot of my connection to Bright Eyes definitely comes from, like, I'm walking to high school listening to, like, Lua, and I'm thinking about a boy who's never gonna like me type of thing. And it's like, I just have such a fondness for that iteration of myself that I feel bad about the rating that I give it as a 23-year-old. But I would, like, this for me would land at like a 7, maybe.
Yeah.
Like, I like it. I think the nostalgia factor definitely plays into that rating too. But I don't know. Just don't tell, like, 13-year-olds. They don't need to know.
Yeah, I think it's a very well produced album. I think it does.
Yeah.
I think with the tropes of heartbreak in, like, emotional man music, it has far less misogyny,
Yes.
which is a breath of fresh air.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say none, because there's a lot of, like, kind of, you know, that kind of woman on pedestal type misogyny, where you're not considering someone as a complex person.
Yeah,
that
there's definitely some songs about, like, will you
He did
fix
refer
me?
to her as a statue.
He called her a statue. He, like wanted her to fix him. Like, I think he said that at some point. Like, I need you to, I don't know, something about fixing me. Hate to hear it. But other than that, it's like, I don't know. I've never been a 20-year-old man, but I have to assume that is one of the, not entirely unharmful, but one of the less harmful assumptions that someone who is in a weird place in life, who has very little, you know, romantic experience might view a woman that way.
Right.
Yeah.
I think he should just get a GF, personally.
Yeah,
he should simply
just
move
try
on.
getting GF.
Like, we get it, you have no GF, and you just need to stop writing songs about having no GF, and maybe write a song about getting a GF, and then get a GF.
Has he considered simply just getting a GF?
I think that a GF would, you know, do a lot of good for him.
What if the album was just called Fevers and No GF?
Fevers and Mommies and Mirrors.
Yeah. When I was 20, I was already dating the person who I ended up marrying, so yeah, that part of it didn't really click with me.
Fair and healthy and good, and I'm happy for you.
Thank you.
Woo!
You're welcome. I don't know, Matt, do you have like a favorite? Did you have a favorite?
Probably Sunrise Sunset.
It's good.
Just because I like as I said, I like the rhythm of it, and that it feels like a cartoon sea shanty in the way that its rhythm moves. And, you know, just songs with evocative, but mostly, like, just imagery style lyrics are just, like, that shit that I love. Hence being super into Neutral Milk Hotel.
Yeah. Neutral Milk Hotel's
and
really
I
good.
think that it works on the same axis that some Neutral Milk Hotel songs.
Yeah, I think it's super interesting hearing, like, what both of your favorites are, because I feel like I kind of categorize the songs in this album into, like, a more abrasive and more soft category. Most of them fall into one of the two. And I feel like both of the ones that you chose would be more on, like, the abrasive end. Whereas, like,
yeah,
Teen Me was very attached to the softer end. So that's kind of where my...
Right, yeah, we both said early on that we're the bigger fans of Loud Connor.
Yeah.
Right.
Although I do a far better impression of Quiet Connor.
Well, you haven't tried Loud Connor, but it is
I haven't.
Nighttime, so that may not be
Yeah.
wise. That is like a full throat yell kind of impression. So maybe
I might
that's
have to go outside and do it.
maybe that's a daytime activity. I really like Movement of a Hand. I like the way he says painted porcelain, the soft kind of smoother voice. But I really like. I feel like Attempt to Tip the Scales is kind of a given as just like a favorite for the interview part as well.
Yeah.
So Attempt to Tip the Scales is kind of in its own category for me because it's so fucking funny that I can't even, like, I can't put anything against it because whatever I put against it will lose. Like, I ride or die for Conor Oberst's friends making fun of him for 5 minutes straight. So
And him putting it on the album on purpose.
And, like, dragging Saddle Creek in the background and laughing. So Attempt to Tip the Scales aside, I think the Movement of a Hand is my favorite.
Nice.
Yeah. It's good to know that it's good to know that jokes that were funny 20 years ago are still funny today.
Yeah, I think that over dramatic, sensitive guy making fun of himself will never not be funny to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty good every time.
I think anyone who's a very sensitive person making fun of themselves is funny to me because I'm a very sensitive person who likes to make fun of themselves. It helps. What can I say?
Yeah.
It is funny.
Anytime that Julian Coster of the Music Tapes and Neutral Milk Hotel like makes an actual joke, I pog so hard.
It's so good. He did a live stream earlier today as we're recording this, and it was very pleasant.
Yeah.
It was very funny when he said that it was like, I know what the internet is, or something like that, something to that effect. Because people like to imagine him as some kind of woodland creature.
Uh-huh.
I like that.
Which, like, he kind of puts that out himself.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like that Sufjan Stevens has a Tumblr. That's really...
I do love his Tumblr. Papa Molly Get Jolly in South Beach. New York is but a dream to me now.
I think that's, like, listening to Sufjan Stevens and listening to, like, Carrie and Lowell and then going and looking at that post will just absolutely break your neck from whiplash.
Yeah.
Listen to Death with Dignity with his Tumblr open and just descend.
Yeah.
Just lose it.
Well, yeah, that's it. He uses his music to get out all those feelings so he could shitpost on the internet and be happy about it.
And then put life is
we are
abundant
all
at the end of every post. It's a mix of, like, Papa Molly Get Jolly and then, like, Jesus really walks with me through everything that I do. And I'm really just grateful for his abundance and light. We're all his light. And then it's like, New York is but a dream to me now.
Do love Sufjan Stevens. That's why the first episode of this podcast was Sufjan Stevens.
Yeah, I was so happy.
That's also
that
just
you
the one
guys
that
did
Stephanie wanted to do, but
Well, Age of Odds is killer.
It's a good album to me.
I sometimes put that on my drive to work, and I, like, barely even make a dent in that album before I arrive. And I live 30 minutes from where I work. So, depending on the song, that might be one song.
Whenever I was in a class that I hated, I was just listen to Impossible Soul twice.
Yeah.
It's nice to measure things in Impossible Souls.
Yeah, measure things in Impossible Souls just makes sense.
Yeah, makes
When the part of the song comes by that says "Don't get distracted," you're like, "Fuck you! Don't tell me what to do."
You're like, I'm listening to
I did
Impossible
very much
Soul.
end up dropping out of university, so...
I mean, I think that dropping out of college is one of the most fun things you can do. Animal Collective told
it's
me
one of the
okay.
best decisions you can make in your entire life.
Yeah. Animal Collective told me I don't have to go to college. Right. And I don't.
Yeah.
And here I am, working at a grocery store.
And here I am, unemployed.
Hey, but we have we're doing fun things for our friends online. And that's what really
podcasting,
matters.
Folks.
Yeah.
It is.
You don't have to go to school to be a podcasting fool. And I live by that.
That is the rhyme.
I live and die by the podcast rhyme.
The podcasting credo.
The podcast rhyme of the Ancient Mariner.
Oh, no. Thanks for letting me talk about Bright Eyes.
Yeah, where can people find you online these days? What are you up to?
I don't say my Twitter on podcast because I don't do anything really relevant there. However, my Instagram, I do visual art. And you can find me at cisgender man. Just both words squished together. If you want to read it like cisgenderman, you can, because that's how I read it in my head, too.
It's like Slender Man.
Yeah, cisgenderman.
It's cisgenderman.
The joke is that I'm not. And that's where I post my art. That's pretty much it.
You also have a podcast.
I do have a podcast, you're right. I do a Twilight podcast as well. In trying to be good on my friends' podcasts, I get nervous and forget everything about myself because I'm thinking about Conor Oberst.
You're valid.
Yeah.
I do a Twilight podcast called Live Free Twi Hard. It is a Twilight watch-along podcast. We are currently we're about to put out part 1 of movie 2. We do 2 parts for every Twilight movie. That's going to be 10 episodes, folks, and I have to watch every Twilight movie in the process. So in order to make me not feel like doing this to myself is in vain, I need you to listen to it, please.
Please listen to the podcast.
Please,
It's
because
very good.
if I do all of this and nobody listens to it, I will become the Joker even faster, and I'm already on a pretty quick track there.
And like I said, Gary is an extremely good editor.
Gary is amazing. Jameson is amazing. Michael is a little scoundrel. We have a lot of fun.
Hell yeah.
We have a really good time. We do talk about cum. Please don't listen around your mom.
I mean, it wouldn't be a noise space podcast if you weren't talking about cum.
It's true.
It's true.
We talk about cum. We make jokes about not liking cops. And
Again, a mandatory presence on a noise space podcast.
Yeah, it's good. We talk about how Jasper looks like he's getting his dick sucked. It's real raunchy and a real good time.
Woo!
Yeah. So find me there.
I'm Matt. You can find me on Twitter at MattGCN. This is really the only podcast I update anymore. I'll probably get back to the other ones at some point now that I've quit my job. But we'll see. I run the shebang at noisespace.xyz, which is the website on which you could find all of these mentioned shows so far. And including some new shows. We have a show that is our friend Roy, who was on our Mars Volta episode, reading creepypasta called Nana Roy's Nightmarinera.
It's so good.
It's a wonderful, wonderful new podcast that has just started. And Sarah and Kay, who is new to the net, Sarah, who's been to the network the whole time pretty much, and then Kay, who is new to the network, have started a new podcast called Special Grade Snacks about an anime whose name I did not write down. But
that's
Jujutsu.
It's Jujutsu Kaisen.
It's Full Metal Alchemist.
No, 5 Grams of Iron is not on the network.
Yeah.
But
No, I didn't say Brotherhood.
that podcast by Brooks and Eddie, friends of the show, I'm going to try to get at least one of them on here eventually. They just finished 5 Grams of Iron and are starting a new podcast about sports anime, which I'm very excited to listen to because they're going to be watching Haikyuu for season.
5 Grams of Iron is so good.
It's so good.
I'm David. You can find me on this show, which you can follow at TuningForkCast on Twitter. I do a podcast very occasionally called The Stick, which is about Homestar Runner. I want to do another episode about that soon, so if you're listening to this and you know anything about Homestar Runner, hit me up at
There
The
was
Stick
literally
Pod.
just a new tune, so...
Yeah, there was, about Halloween, where Coach Z dresses up as Del the Funky Homo Sapien from the Gorillaz music video for Clint Eastwood. And you can find me elsewhere on Twitter at Daves with 3 V's, like Waves, a funny landlord.
Like the funny landlord.
It's kind of... I don't like that there's now a second funny landlord, Hannibal Buress. I don't like that people might not know what we're talking about. Like, who of the two we are referencing when we say funny landlord?
Yeah.
I personally hate to see it.
Well, the thing is that less people should be landlords, and then we won't have this problem.
Well, I just think it's
true.
wild that both Mr. Waves and Hannibal Buress don't have real jobs.
Yeah, what the fuck?
Yeah, get a job.
Personally, I'm extremely surprised that Waves doesn't like working.
That sounds so out of character for him.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for bearing with the fact that I'm a little goober who doesn't know how to do an outro and letting me talk about Bright Eyes today, because I know more about Conor Oberst than I do about podcasts. And I'm...
Thankfully, we do have a standard outro. Like we always say, I had never seen a shooting star before.
I had never seen a shooting star before.
I'd never seen a shooting star before.
Bye, everybody.
Bye!